Hello and welcome to Haman Nature. I am Adam Haman and I have a treat for you today. I am interviewing Robbie the Fire Bernstein. Most of you who are listening to this show probably know who Robbie is, but if you don't, he co hosts the Part of the Problem podcast with Dave Smith, and he also has his own show called Run Your Mouth. And he is a stand up comic who just came through Las Vegas a few weeks ago. And I got to chat him up and asked him to come on my little show, and he was nice enough to say yes. We have a very fun conversation together, and I can't wait to share it with you. Please enjoy. Robbie the Fire Bernstein, welcome to Haman Nature.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be on. I like your little detective office there with the lighting. Looks like you just finished solving a mystery. You keep dwelling on some dead bodies, so you can't quite give them peace and let their souls return to the afterlife because you haven't yet found the murderer. But I like the look you got going.
Yeah, you got what I'm going for. I think I'm Batman. Currently, my cave is above ground, so I'm not doing it quite right, but eventually.
Batman, he didn't really need to be underground and around all those bats. Doesn't even seem sanitary. Wouldn't that have been a great ending to Batman if he got bit by one of those bats, got rabies, and then turned into the villain? I'll write that Batman story.
Yeah, call Chris Nolan. I'll get that thing made. Well, you might wonder what my little show's about. Since I invited you on and you were just kind enough to say yes. But if you're curious, I'll let you know.
All right, what are we up to?
So it's called Haman
The
Nature.
Jewish weather machine, right? We explore what they're doing with the heat wave to try and get us to support bombing Iran.
Yeah, that's that topic is set for the 20-minute mark. You're jumping the gun a little bit. But I use my last name there, and then it's a play on human nature. And I think our species has a nature, and so does the universe. And so I use the space to try and figure out, like, what's the best way for us to act so that we are peaceful and prosperous and harmonious, which means I get to talk about anything I want to, political philosophy, metaphysics, epistemology, science, evolution, evolutionary psychology, all that stuff.
What is epistemology?
The philosophy of knowledge.
Oh.
How do you know what you know? What is a valid set of reasons for thinking you know something?
All right. I just figured it was a study of piss, so that's why I wanted to clarify it.
EPIST, it's electronic.
Fair enough. All right.
So I've got a
range of topics you're exploring.
I got a handful of questions here for you. You want me to just start us off?
Absolutely. I hope I can help guide you on your journey to better knowledge of the universe. You've come to the right place, my friend, for epistemology and other topics.
I know that I have. You're known for EPIS and sandwiches.
Exactly.
So my first question, you kind of stepped on my first joke. My first question is, so hey, what's with these Jews?
I take no accountability. I want to make that clear. I don't like what's going on in Israel any more than anyone else, and I think it's a poor representation of my tribe. So no endorsement for me on what's currently going on over there.
Yeah, amen. And we don't really talk about that particular mess on this show because it's like the tar baby, you know. You don't want to touch it and get it all over you, and you just sink into the quagmire. But no, I didn't mean those Jews. I meant your Jews. I'm kind of curious about like where you came from. If I heard correctly, your family's like super orthodox and traditional.
Yeah,
So what's that like?
I did it for a nice stretch of life. Retired around 24, 25. But yeah, I did a nice stretch in that lifestyle, and it was cool. And you know, I have no gripes about it, nor do I criticize anyone who's continued on that path. But I just kind of fell in love with comedy. I don't know that really suited my my current, my particular breed of shenanigans. So it's not something I'm really keeping at the moment. But yeah, I did that for a good 24, 25 years, something like that, maybe longer.
You know, what do they think about your career trajectory so far?
I get along with my parents very well. They're cool people. But they live a more religious lifestyle, so I don't really tell them about porching or other activities. And I just kind of listen. I was not a good student, and it's not like I had some great career that I left or otherwise, but I'm not really asked for permission from the parents kind of people. So I just started doing comedy at some point in time, and then I was doing it a pretty long time, and then I was taking it more seriously. So I never really looped him in on what I was doing, or I know a lot of other people seem to, I guess, have more of a hiccup to overcome with their parents if they're not living the lifestyle that they were supposed to do. But I didn't really sit down and have a conversation or partake in that tug of war. I just got after it, and it's I've been doing it 15, 16 years, and I think they just realized, oh, he's pretty serious about trying to do this. And I think at this point they give me a little bit of credit for just how hard I've gone with it, and that I've able to actually kind of build it into something.
Amen. And your work ethic is super impressive. About
That's
the
honestly all I have. When you don't have a lot of skill, you got to at least try and work hard. And I'm lucky because I need the work. Because if I don't have the work, I will just jerk myself off to death. And so I honestly have no choice but to make sure that I always have work in front of me, because otherwise I'm the world's biggest loser. So I seek out work so that I can fill up my schedule and be preoccupied.
Yeah, I don't think you're the only one with that particular character trait. But good, you made it work
Hey,
for you.
give me one sec. I don't run air conditioning. It's one of my psychotic things, but I do have a fan there, and I just have to redirect it. I'm starting to sit here like an Ace Ventura when he's sitting inside of that rhino and the fan dies. That's what this feels like right now. Give me 1 second.
You got it.
Yeah, I don't run the air conditioning partially as porch training so that I'm never a bitch about, oh, it's so hot here, it's so hot. You just deal with it, and then you get used to, hey, it's going to be fucking hot, and that's it.
I will have questions about the porching later, but seeing you in Vegas those couple of times was pretty impressive. It can get hot on the porch out here.
Yeah, the first time we did it, I just figured it was the desert and it was cool at night. And I love Shawnee and Ted. They're like dear friends of mine at this point. I'm really looking forward to, we're doing their new spot, the High Water Tavern or High Water Saloon out near Cincinnati. I'm really looking forward to hanging out with them and drinking with Ted at their new spot. But the first time that I had organized that porch, I think I picked August. And Shawnee didn't relay the information of, hey, maybe you want to pick another month. Now, I don't fault her. It's just I didn't know Vegas. No one relayed that, and me and Ted were out there, and it was literally setting up in a sauna. It was like 120 degrees, and me and him were just out there setting this up, going, people are gonna die tonight. And we got through it. Both those shows were great. They had such a cool house, and that last show that I did in Vegas was a touring highlight thus far. That was a pretty electric show, so that was a cool one.
Oh, the one at Wise Guys?
Yeah, that was one of the better shows of the tour so
I thought
far.
that show was really, really good. I mean, we came out to support you, but I didn't know what to expect. But you were outstanding. Your openers were really, really good. I didn't expect such a good show. So go out and
Like
go
I
out and
said,
see Robbie on tour.
I've been doing comedy 15 years, and if they could all be like that night, but they just aren't.
Yeah, exactly. So back to your family. My own upbringing was just modern liberal chaos mostly. And you look at somebody who comes from like a lot of familial structure, religious structure, like, I don't know, the Amish, or, pick your, what looks to the outside like it's some sort of authoritarian religious minded thing. And it looks like it might be like super oppressive and restrictive, and your parents are going to yell at you. But I also figure you get a lot of healthy, wholesome upbringing in a situation like that. And that's obviously going to give you character that you should be able to do whatever you want with if you decide to break out of that nest. Which intuition is correct? The modern leftist one, or mine?
Well, it's very easy to project, and I don't know what other people's like childhoods actually look like. I didn't live them, so I don't know what other people's lifestyles looked like. There's certainly, there are a couple flaws in the upbringing, and having to keep, Sabbath is not exactly always the funnest way to spend your weekend, or especially the 3-day holidays without electricity. Those and going to, you know what I mean? Some of those things could be a little bit intrusive, but I will say there is a bit of a moral foundation of just really being kind to other people that I don't really know how other people really come to that conclusion without kind of the almost like the rigorous training for it. I do, it's so odd to me because I was like religious for a very long time, and religiously I could be like fanatically disciplined. Like if I just look back at, keeping Sabbath and a lot of the things that I used to do when I was really a little bit more borderline extreme in my religion. And then versus all the ways that I can kind of just be completely compulsive and a total bum. But like the way I've pursued comedies and things I enjoy, certainly I guess I have benefited from the religious discipline that I grew up with. And that I wish I had more control and I could apply it to all areas of my life. Like I can tell you, I stopped drinking at home, I don't know, a year or two ago, but I still just like if I'm eating cookies, I'm eating cookies type deal. And you're like, why can't I just reapply that rule? Like it's just you know what I mean? Or I go to the gym every day and I'm like, I have this much discipline about going to the gym every day. Why am I eating this cake right now in the middle of the afternoon? You know what I mean? So there is like a little bit of I don't know why I can't seem to equally apply the discipline everywhere. But the disciplined lifestyle that I grew up with, when I take on tasks, I do seem to have a little bit more of almost like a rule orientation of, hey, we said this is important, so we're going to get it done. That I don't necessarily, I'm not judging other people, but I don't necessarily see that in everybody. And I also think if you actually looked at the numbers of, I think one of the largest indicators of success is an ability to delay gratification.
Sure.
And I think if you look at the success of Mormons and like other religious groups, probably, although that religious training might have been misguided, they do kind of outperform if you want to look at, economic success as a metric, which, to an extent, we're all playing the game of trying to have more money. And so some people are winning at that game, and a lot of them did come from religious backgrounds. And it probably does come from some level of training of, just delayed gratification, even if it was applied to religion and the Lord. So my guess is on that basis, I think you're right. And then there's also definitely, I actually don't like community. I'll be honest, because no, I really don't. That's one of the things I hated about my upbringing was I find I'm a little bit low self-esteem. I have a hard time saying no to people. And so I find almost loose social connections put me at a loss because I'm pretty easily imposed upon and I'm very reluctant to ask other people for things. And I find I have like a high guilt complex. So I really don't like community or social structures because I just feel like I'm being imposed upon. And then I just walk around like Larry David all the time where I'm annoyed with everybody because everyone wants something from me and I don't really have the ability to say no. But there's definitely a very high community aspect. There's definitely a very high family aspect. And as a kid, I think I probably grew up in a very different landscape that like on Saturdays, I had a network of like 10 friends who I could just show up to the house and like literally just walk in the front door type deal. You know what I mean? Like people's families were kind of like that close that if I were to describe what my weekends look like of just kind of wandering in and out of my friends' houses at like between the ages of like 7 and 12 years old, it would almost be a picture of like a 1950s America type deal. So I would say a lot of those things were probably net positives, but once again, I don't know what leftist America upbringing looks like other than, hey, go figure it out for yourself and maybe watching too much television.
Yeah, it's hilarious. One of the things atheists like myself will praise religion for is, you get all this community. And then here's Robbie. Yeah, I can't stand the goddamn community.
I really can't. If anything, it's one of my reluctance. The LP and with other, I'm a bit of a loner, and it works out well for me. And I'm not like a total introvert. We've hung out a bunch of times. I think you're fantastic, but I don't know. It's just like I do find communities to be for me more imposing than they are a net benefit.
Yeah, they're not all built the same, too. And one other thing about religion for an atheist like me, I do think it's a marvelous way, and I think that's why we evolved with it, that it contains a set of narratives that will allow the elders to quickly and easily communicate a set of values and moral hierarchies, rules of thumb, without like necessarily having to know why they all exist, because God said so at the end of it. And that's a pretty easy communication method, and that's probably good. We needed that. Maybe we still do. I don't know.
I have I don't have big thoughts that I like to share with other people about religion. I feel like it's a personal journey. There's nothing that I can prove to anybody, nor do I want to be preaching in any capacity. in my best estimation is I'm open to believing because I think that there's, listen, I can like logic it backwards that I think that there's health benefits to believing that there's meaning to life and that you can draw on powers outside of yourself. Now, is that actually why I choose to somewhat believe in religion, or am I just rationalizing the little bit of belief that I still have? I can't really answer those questions for you. The flip side of it is, uh, it's somewhat a nasty picture, but I do think that there's a problem both with government and religion, which is I think some people have realized that they can monopolize violence and that essentially they remove the tool from other individuals that they can remain on top of the social structure. Now, we don't really want to allow everyone to be violent because that's actually more chaos than select individuals utilizing a tool that they essentially have indoctrinated other people not to utilize. But there is an aspect, if you just want to look at life from a zero, religion aspect, that there's a little bit of a degree of there's no reason for morality other than it was basically indoctrinated into us as a code of evolution for us to get along, but that you should cheat to the extent that you can cheat. And I even think that Darwin himself had a reluctance of embracing the outcome of his own worldview, which is essentially that there is no personal reason to engage in morality. If anything, if you believe in life from a purely evolutionary standpoint, you should almost cheat to the extent that you could cheat, because I guess the game is either it's one of two outlooks. Either the game is I want to proliferate my genes as much as possible, and so that's your moral code, or there's literally there's no meaning to our reality, in which case there's really no reason, there's no way to attribute value to anything. Why engage in any one activity? Why even choose to engage in living life versus not living life? There's really no reason. So I'm very long-winded here. When Dave doesn't cut me off, I'll just ramble and wait till someone cuts me off. So anyways, I see some aspect of proof in a higher power, and that I don't really understand how else you would attribute any value of meaning to life or any other structure for morality. But like I said, I don't practice any organized religion in any capacity. And so I don't really, I don't want to preach anyone that they need to reconvene with the Lord.
Yeah, I certainly don't throw shade on religious people. Of my close friends and people I really respect, it's probably like 65-35 religious to atheist. And as far as like where you get morality from, it's trial and error, really. I mean, I had to kill a few hobos and try to hide the body, but then I eventually figured out.
Good.
First of all, the thrill wore off.
Town to get away with that in, yeah.
Yeah, except every time you dig a hole, there's somebody else in it. But
burying a body in Vegas, you're like, shit, they're gonna pin that one on me too.
Right, exactly. But I do think that there are meta problems with trying to cheat your way through life. I mean, it catches up to you pretty quick. There's a good reason that doesn't have to come from God or anything else for coming to the conclusion that living an honest life is better in the long run.
You see, I think that's the sucker's initiation, in that if your pursuit was actually pure power, look at a dictator. Dictators are able to almost rise to a threshold in which their entire existence is like an exertion of power over other people, and they don't have to pay social consequences for grifting. And I actually think that's what the elites are doing, is that they basically seek enough power where it's like, if you and I are a jerk at a party, there might be social consequences for being a jerk. If Tom Cruise shows up and he wants to be a jerk at a party, there's going to be zero social consequence because he's kind of so high power, he's not going to pay social consequences for like petty infractions. And so kind of the more power that you actually are able to acquire in life, the less you have to adhere to social codes that are essentially integrated in the rest of us because there's social consequences for cheating or being a bad person. And that's why I mean by the elites are kind of able to play a different game, and that they're looking to acquire enough power that they can engage in violence and cheating in other ways that we're in trouble because we're kind of underneath them in the social code. And that's where I'm saying the kind of the idea of I feel like there's a bit of a karma, or this feeling of, well, I need to get along, and that's why morality exists, because we all do better getting along. And I'm saying that if you actually look at it like from an evolutionary standpoint, That's the sucker's game of saying, "Hey, my best outcome isn't trying to get along." The real game is acquiring enough power so that other people are stuck in that threshold and framework where you're not.
Well, it's a hard game to play because you have multiple interactions with people over time and you get a reputation. And it's hard to climb that status ladder without being pulled down. Like even Tom Cruise, he lost a lot of opportunities. One for being a Scientologist, and another after he sort of jumped up and down on Oprah's couch or whatever that nonsense was. So even a guy like him, suffers penalties for doing wrong in the eyes of others. And then, as far as dictators go, they got a pretty short life expectancy, and you can find yourself getting whacked all on the way up. And that ladder is built off of a structure that I think you and I don't think is legitimate, which is government monopoly power. So I point the finger of blame on that whole structure before I would on, like, I think morality has to be discovered. I think our species just has to figure it out. And I don't think we have yet, although I'm pretty happy with libertarianism as, the foundation of a legal code, non-aggression principle and private property.
You, in your outlook, why even have morality? What does it matter if the entire world is people just running around slicing each other's heads off? Why try and push forward with a better Earth? What does that achieve? What does it?
You're familiar with the is-ought gap problem?
No, lay it on me.
It's I think David Hume, philosopher, Scottish, made it a thing. Like he would say, you can't reason from an is, a state of the world, to an ought, a value statement of the way we should act. And I take a small step over that chasm by just assuming that human life is better than death. We demonstrate that preference almost every second. Yes, there are a few exceptions who jump off the bridge, but most of the time we think that life is better than death and prosperity is better than famine. And so what morality is for is
couldn't that also be like almost a mental trick of your own DNA
Sure.
against you?
That's what Bert Weinstein thinks. Yeah, he thinks that's just a grand delusion. And okay, fine, maybe. But we have to figure out how we're going to act when we get up in the morning every day. And I think what morality is for is to give us some guidelines to how to have the best life, not only just for ourselves if we were just on a desert island or whatever, but in our interactions with other people.
Or to be indoctrinated and suckered by the overlords.
Yeah,
have us abiding by a set of rules that they don't abide by.
I'm so fearful of our machine overlords to change directions that I always thank Grok every time it gives me a good answer to a question.
I could see that.
Thanks, buddy. I'm told that we waste hundreds of billions of kilowatts of energy by all us idiots saying thanks to the LLMs.
Wait, say that again.
Every time you interact with the thing, it uses energy, right? I mean, these things are famous for sucking down energy. So every time we hit the prompt, it takes kilowatts.
Right.
And we have this thing where a lot of us, me included, say thank you to the thing, and that's just burning energy. It doesn't do anything, But when Skynet takes over, I feel like I'm going to be
to know that you were one of the nice humans.
Yeah, I at least want a trustee position. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you want a good track record in there.
Yeah, I'll have the job of cleaning the pods where they encase us or whatever.
You think robots are going to achieve consciousness and singularity and take over the Earth from us?
I don't know. If you forced me to guess, I'd say no. I think the LLMs are completely on the wrong track. I think if we're ever going to get artificial general intelligence, which is what we all used to mean by AI, a machine that can actually walk around and think, what the Terminator is. I think if we're ever going to get there, we have to embody some kind of a neural net structure, put it in a physical universe or physical world where it has to do things, and then embed within it something like our lizard brain that wants to maintain temperature, hates heat, hates cold, gets hungry, likes to have sex, give it a bunch of drives that will make it want to get up off the couch and do something. And then maybe under those constraints, we won't know how, but the neural net will bootstrap itself up into something like us that thinks like us. And these LLMs are just kind of a real impressive parlor trick, but they're just sampling from what we've already written, in the video stuff. I don't even know how that's done. But I think either one of two things is going on. Either we aren't really sentient, or or these LLMs are just the wrong vehicle for getting to sentience.
All right. And what would you say is the evidence of us not even being sentient? Which I think you mean as experiencing consciousness, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to make that claim, but a lot of people have. And I think it's rooted in the fact that at the very basic level, we just don't understand what consciousness is. We can't really point to it. We don't know where thoughts come from. It's very mysterious. And for a guy like me, my epistemology says, yep, okay, that's a mystery. Let's keep looking into it. We'll figure it out someday. But a lot of people have a sort of a snap to grid where every mystery just has to have, I believe this about that. And so they'll snap to, the simulation theory or God or something else. And I'm just not that way. I'm comfortable with like, yeah, we don't know that yet. That's fine. Let's keep looking into it.
All right, fair enough.
I have a question about you and your career, and I want to motivate it by telling you a joke.
All right, sure.
It's not my joke. You know who Bob Murphy is, right?
Love Bob Murphy. Don't interact with that guy enough. He's great.
For the last several months, I've been doing crossover podcasts with him once a week.
Nice.
We just record one episode and then pump it out on his show and my show. It's been fabulous. When I first met him, that's not true. But I witnessed this joke told by Bob Murphy on the Contra cruise. You know what that is?
Yes.
So this was in 2017. This is where I met Scott Horton and Dave Smith and Michael Bolden for the first time. And for some reason, Tom had people doing like little mini roast sessions. And so Bob got up and roasted Dave with the following little joke. He says to the audience, anybody here a fan of Part of the Problem? And, the hands go up. And he goes, yeah, it's a good show. It's interesting, though. You might think that Dave does that show solo, but there's another guy on that show. There's another co-host. His name's Robbie the Fire Bernstein. And, Bob's subtle little dig is that Dave talks a lot, and poor Robbie doesn't get to get the little word in edgewise. And so I'm using that to motivate my question, which is comedy trajectories and careers have changed, obviously, throughout the decades. And you find yourself in a pretty interesting spot where, you're sort of riding Dave's wave to achieve escape velocity. And you're not just doing that, you're doing your own stuff, which I think is awesome. But it makes me wonder, what do you think about that? There's obvious upsides. Are there downsides? Don't poison the old well where you live. But like, what do you think about all that?
You mean is there a downside that I'm kind of Dave second on Part of the Problem?
Or like that you open for him. I mean, has that increased your chances of being a headliner yourself, or does that keep you down? Like, I can imagine that going either way,
Yeah, I don't even look at it as the potential for keeping me down. I more look at it as I'm trying to fill up my schedule every year with as many comedy gigs as I possibly can do. And I think Dave only does about, he's like every other weekend. So let's say he does 20 weekends a year. So that's 20 weekends a year that my calendar is filled. Typically speaking, those gigs pay me better than anything else. And there's an audience there. There's a full room of people, and I'm able to work on my comedy. So there's no part of me that looks at that, which is it's literally the best opportunity I have. There's no part of me that looks at it like, oh, this might not be, I just look at it. I'm more of like, I'm not swinging for home runs type deal. I'm just looking to get better at comedy. I want to do it as much as possible. And believe me, the 20 gigs that I get to do for Dave are so much easier than putting together Porch Tour. If he did 52 weekends a year, I don't know, maybe I would cut out on 4 of those to do my own thing. Sometimes headlining is more fun, particularly like Porches. It's cool because like we hang out all night, so it's like it's a very different scene and it's a different vibe, and there's a different energy when you're headlining. But I'm so thankful for Dave bringing me on the road. He doesn't have to do that, and at the moment, it's the best opportunity I have in comedy to be getting up in front of the packed club rooms, and it's a sweet spot because, I mean, not that I have bad shows, but he's not coming after me, so I get to really work on things. It's so the answer is, but on that, I never think like, oh man, I'm losing out by doing this. On that one, I'm pretty grateful for the opportunity.
Well, you've made the most of it. I mean, I guess it's a natural progression, but you have gotten so good over the years. It's really kudos, man. Well done.
I just try and work at it. Per the podcast, I love being there and I love doing the show. I do wonder because I haven't converted all that much of the audience over to Run Your Mouth, and I do wonder if I wasn't on the show at all, if more people would actually check out my content because I get it. If you hear me 3 times a week, I'm part of the problem. I don't know that you even really think, hey, I need to hear more of this person. So there's a possibility that maybe I'm missing out on kind of converting more of the audience that I've been exposed to. But I also, once again, it's like I enjoy doing the show, and I still have all the opportunity in the world to go and do my own thing and do my own episodes. So there's no part of me that goes, this is getting. It's like I can do more Run Your Mouths. I can shoot more sketches. It really doesn't get in the way of me trying to do my own thing. So I'm overwhelmingly just grateful for the opportunity.
Yeah, you definitely keep busy. Going out of order a little bit here, but I'm interested in this. Is it going to be an entire interview series you're doing on ZeroHedge?
I don't know. I'm a daily I'm a daily reader of ZeroHedge. And sometimes when you take too much Adderall, you have really big ideas of things that you think you should do, and then and then you pitch it to people, and then you have to actually execute on them.
Oh no.
No, I read ZeroHedge literally every day, and I was looking at kind of the way they present their content, and I was like, I think I could be doing a really good daily show of kind of summarizing the articles and then getting one of these authors on for a podcast because I think there's a lot of people that don't really utilize digital media all that well. I think I'm very good at interviewing people, asking, good questions, and I'm reading a lot of authors, so I'm like, I could be really helping these people represent this information on podcast form that I think could reach more people. There was a bit of a lag between when I reached out to them and then we got back to me with the green light, and now I'm on I'm touring pretty relentlessly. I also am doing all the production on it, and at least the numbers out the gate weren't quite at the level I need them on to like better monetize the show and hire a producer. So I'm really enjoying that show, and I'm already getting better guest access than I do on Run Your Mouth, and I'm getting quick yeses. I would like to get to the point where that's kind of more of a daily news show with a little bit more of a ZeroHedge kind of conspiratorial bent, where it's like you can tune in and kind of get a recap of everything that was on the page that day in under like 7 minutes, followed by a more in-depth interview. But I'm touring relentlessly right now and doing 2 other podcasts, so I'm still trying to and doing the production on it, which does take me time. So I'm trying to figure out the groove on it, but I'm enjoying it thus far, and I'm hoping that it grows so that I can kind of justify doing more of it and investing more into it.
Heck yeah. Speaking of conspiracies, I have a 2-part question. Is it the case that Run Your Mouth is not on the Gas Digital Network?
Yeah, no, it's a totally independent enterprise. Was never on Gas, never affiliated with Gas. I love Gas. Part of the problem still works with Gas, but Run Your Mouth has always just been my thing, and I kind of like it that way.
All right, and then the second part, is that the case because you wouldn't agree to have sex with either Lewis or Ralph?
Well, they never put the offer right on the table. I think maybe you have to go to them first with those kind of offers, or maybe dating and trying to work your way up to, hey, can I have a show on the network? But it was never just presented to me, hey, you just got to pick one of the 2 of these guys and you can have your show on the network. So I didn't actually have the dignity to turn down that offer. It wasn't presented to me.
Well, you did make the opening overture, so I guess that's kind of like turning it down.
Yeah.
Um, I love your porch tours, even though I guess they must be just annoying as hell to set up, as compared to just getting comedy club gigs. Were those born out of the COVID nightmare, or was it something else?
I'm not even sure anymore. So the way it started was, I moved to New York. I had probably already been doing comedy, I don't know, 8 years, 9 years, something like that, when I finally moved to New York. And I moved to New York because I'd hit the level where I was like, all right, I think I need to live in New York. And then I took a day job so that I could move to New York. And that job was really not well suited for doing comedy. and that was a bad year for stand-up, personally, and so I quit that job and started working over at Gas, and then that's kind of when I started on Dave's show. But then, I was living in this tiny, like, I mean, I had I had a roommate, and I had this tiny bedroom, and I moved to the city to do comedy, and I found myself doing just more digital media out of my own bedroom, which included, I was filming a sketch show at the time called Rob's Newsroom. And then I was doing Run Your Mouth. Then I was also doing Part of the Problem. And I couldn't believe how much time, and I was also working from home. I had a day job where I was working from home, and I kind of couldn't believe how much time I was spending in essentially a prison cell of like this tiny one bedroom. And I'm like, so I just put out the bat call on the podcast because I was like, it's summer. I need to get out of my apartment. I was like, I will come do my podcast on your porch. Like, I need to experience some summer here. Let me know where you live in the tri-state area. You can be my co-host. And so it was kind of a goofy bit on the podcast in the first 2 years of just going to people's, literally, I did episodes. I don't even remember how many I did, but we did a handful of episodes with random people that hit me up, and I went to their houses, hung out on their porches, and we did some episodes. And then at some point, someone must have pitched me on, why don't you, or maybe I was like, next year, let's try and do shows. And so it happened to have been that the first year that we did shows was COVID, but like Porch Store kind of predated that, and the idea of trying to run them as comedy shows predated that. And some of those initial ones were like a huge hit because no one was doing anything, and people were so excited to get out of their homes. And so from there, I was doing them just regionally because I didn't think it was possible to be able to sell enough tickets to kind of cover flights, hotels. It's a whole different dynamic once you're introducing flights and bringing out openers. But then year 1 and 2, I think I just did them locally. And then people kept hitting me up. Why don't you try come here, come in here? I was like, screw it. Let's give it a try. Let's do a handful of these. Let's see if I can break even. And now this year, I think I'm doing like 40 or 40. Like I'm just doing a lot of them.
God, love it. I'm glad, very glad of it. In my head, I guess I just thought you grew up in New York. Not the case. So where did you grow up? Where did you live before that?
I have a lot of New York in me. I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut, but I actually dormed at this religious high school that was in New York City for high school. So I was kind of living in New York City as of high school. Then I spent 2 years away actually in Israel, and then I came back to New York. I went to college in New York where I was living in New York for some of those years. And then I started doing comedy basically last year of college, and then I was taking the train into the city literally every night and doing open mics like every night of the week. So I'm not a New Yorker. I even currently live in Connecticut, but I've definitely spent a lot of time in New York, and my comedy does have a little bit of the, hey, I'm walking here.
Yeah, it does. What, why comedy? I mean, did you just stumble across? Were you watching Comedy Central in secret in the house, or like what happened?
I didn't watch a lot of stand-up when I started doing stand-up comedy, but I definitely, my dad's like a really, like, he's a charismatic and funny guy. And I think growing up, like as a kid, I used to meet people and be like, your dad's the funniest guy I know. Your dad's the funniest guy I know. And so I think I kind of like valued humor more than other people. And that like even hanging out with friends, I was always kind of like looking for jokes and looking to make things funny and just like goofing around and having a fun time. Like I definitely have met other people that don't seem to value or like look for jokes the same way. Whereas like me and my friend, I mean, we were just kind of like jerk offs, but like we were always looking to like stir up trouble, and we were just kind of like messing with people all the time. And we were just entertaining ourselves. And I used to love Howard Stern. I used to love just like comedy movies, sitcoms, Simpsons, Family Guy. So my interest was way more when I started stand up in kind of like scripted comedy or television comedy. And if anything, more on the writing side than a performance side. But I didn't know how to do any of that. So I just started going to open mics and doing stand up. And then I just loved that and kind of kept with it. And now it's, 15 years later, still going.
Yeah, fabulous. So sandwiches, am I right? They're pretty great.
I had 2 great sandwiches today. Can I tell you about the sandwiches I had?
Please do.
I had phenomenal sandwiches. It's it's one of the things I say that overeating, at least for me, I got a bad stomach is a home game activity. But at this point, I try and eat somewhat healthy. I find it a little bit easier to do at home. And so I went to there's a great bakery by me. If you ever end up in Stamford, Connecticut, There's a bakery called Beldotti's. I particularly recommend. They have these black raspberry jelly donuts that if I had to compete in a donut competition and show up with a donut, I would bring this donut. And I'm not even typically a jelly donut fan, but this is just that good of a donut. They also have excellent breads, and I'll only go in there if I want to eat donuts and pretend like I don't want to eat donuts. So I'll buy bread also and a coffee to pretend like I'm just shopping there and not just being a fat ass and showing up for donuts. So I so I was there yesterday.
Take a newspaper and a magazine.
Exactly. Yeah. All
Throw in that box of
things.
condoms and
Yeah, exactly. So I picked up, I got this really good whole wheat bread, and then I was in the market yesterday, and the avocados, I guess they're in seasons. They were ripe, because otherwise, I don't have the patience for avocados. I like avocado, but I don't have the bit. Like, I'll buy them green. By the time they turn black, I forgot about them, and they're underneath.
That's because that time is like half a day. Like
No.
hard as a rock, hard as a rock, hard as a rock. These are dead.
Oh, I just don't have the patience for it. It's like too finicky. Like, I like them, but I don't have the patience for it. But I went in yesterday. They were just soft, ready to go. I was like, all right, let's go. So for breakfast, I had some rich white girl breakfast. I had I toasted up that bread. I put the avocado on it. I put the arugula on it. I spiced up the top of the avocado with the little salt, little sea salt, little pepper, little spicy pepper. Threw the arugula on, and then my pasture raised eggs. I go for the good eggs. So I had myself some rich white girl breakfast of some homemade fresh avocado bread with some high quality ingredients. And then
Are you saying you ate that open faced like avocado?
Yeah. And then I had 4 eggs, 2 slices of bread. I was getting after it, and so I sliced each of them in half, so it's just bite sized, open faced. It was fantastic. And then for lunch, I had the second half of the avocado along with I made myself just some hamburgers in the pan, retoasted up some bread. Threw a little lettuce on there. If I had onion, tomato, peppers, I would have done that, but I didn't have it. A little barbecue sauce, a little hot sauce. I'm already having a 2 big sandwich day. That's why you see me with such a smile on my face. I'm radiating sandwich glory of being 2 for 2 on delicious meals.
Yeah, we caught you in a good moment, definitely. Yeah, I love a nice, fresh, nice, hot sandwich. We got great food in here in Vegas, I'm sure you know, but there's tons of places that make a nice, fine sandwich. I don't know how long I'm supposed to keep you, Robbie. So before we wind down here, is there anything you want to get off your chest? Any secrets? You still have time to start telling me about those Jews and what they're up to.
I really hope that this storm settles. It really seems to me like I don't know. And listen, Trump is driving me nuts, and the loyalists are driving me more nuts than Trump's driving me nuts. I almost want to figure out, maybe you can figure this out for me, because you have more gambling experience. I almost want to make it that, like, I will engage in conversation with you, but you have to place a bet on what your point of view is. Like, you need to have a specific prompt of what exactly you're arguing, and you need to make, you have to put some money down. Yes. Once you put some money down on a particular perspective, I will have a conversation with you, because if not, kind of the way it feels from my perspective is that anything I say that criticizes Trump, it's like, I'll just 10 very loud voices will pop up. And then when they're wrong, they just disappear. And I never get the satisfaction of someone going, oh, I was wrong about that. And then I'm just on to the next topic, and it's a new 10 people, and I'm mad at them because of the last 10 people. So, it was funny in the first Trump go around, the news cycle was so loud, and they're being such crybabies about nonsense that, like, he was a Russian asset, that I was taking Trump's side, where it's like, you guys are being a bunch of crybabies. Now Trump just completely switches positions on a dime. He says things that make no sense. You start pointing out why they don't make sense, and then everyone's just, the Trump loyalists are just blasting you of, you're not trusting the plan, you don't want American jobs. And then you start explaining, if you're not going to import these items, you're going to end up losing some American jobs. Well, all those could have been American jobs. And you're like, all right, well, let's break down the economics of it. No, you're just you're just a pro-Israel globalist who loves sending jobs over to China. It's like, no, I'm pro-prosperity. I think we could have more prosperity. And here's why I think that. Oh, no, you just don't understand the plan. All right, explain to me the plan then. Anyways. So I'm hating the current Trump landscape. that he half teases something, and you're like, well, let me play that through, and they're like, well, that's not what he's saying, and sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But currently, my best estimate of what's going on is that Israel was trying to get this regime change war. It was off the lie of Iran having nuclear missiles that they want to use. And Trump, in a way, I don't know that this is what he was intending, kind of called their bluff. And he was like, all right, what's the strategic strike that needs to be done that we no longer have to worry about their nukes? And then he goes ahead and he does the strategic strike and he goes, now we're done with this. And Israel's like, well, we're not done with this because that's not actually what we wanted. But it's hard for them to now turn around and go, well, there's still this nuclear problem. Now, I don't even think Trump believes that they were 14 days away or what he did removed whatever threat existed. I think we're exactly where we were. I think they moved the centrifuges. I think they moved whatever nuclear material was there. I think whatever supply of scientists that they need from North Korea or Russia or whoever is training their people, I think we're exactly where we were 3 weeks ago, of Iran keeping a blatant nuclear deterrent, of knowing how to build a bomb that they don't want. But
you and I are recording on Tuesday, June 24th, 2025, and yesterday I was podcasting with Bob in a episode that'll come out this Thursday. But I said that exact same thing. Like, everyone was talking about, yay, Trump's a 9D chess player and everything worked out. You know, all you people who were naysaying, this is incredible. We're getting pieces breaking out. There's ceasefires. And I'm like, what's changed? We all saw the convoy of trucks leaving Fordow, right? And you can't undo knowledge. You know, it's an enormous country. They can get the know-how and the pieces of steel to build the centrifuge. What in the world has changed between 2 weeks ago when this madness started and now, from either side's perspective? Nothing.
The one thing that's changed is that Trump can pretend we can be in the exact same place, but he can pretend that it's no longer a threat because of the actions that he took. And
he also, if he wanted to, he could say, look, you know, I was trying to negotiate with these people in Israel. Everyone says they're our greatest ally in the region. Well, no, they're not. They stabbed me in the back personally and just did whatever they wanted to do. So, you know, maybe we don't need an ally in the region. Maybe we screwed up over these many decades. Maybe we should just pull back out, and we got enough problems on our own shores with 36 trillion and change in debt and all the social unrest and poop in the streets and overdoses. You know, maybe we need to stick to our own knitting. You know, clean up our own room first. He could say that now. Maybe he will.
I think if Israel further violates the ceasefire and tries to get him to fight this fight that's unpopular and he doesn't want, this might be the most natural and easiest off-ramp that anyone's ever had. And then if I were to game plan it out, though, if Trump were to take that hard line, my guess is Netanyahu would get ousted from government, and then we would be back in the exact same place with somewhere it was a little bit more neutral over there. But it would be, hey, it wasn't the Israeli government. It was this character, Netanyahu.
Right.
But, you know, we'll see how all that plays out. But on that topic of I was saying, hey, guys, square the circle for me of 14 days away from a bomb, and we hit these 3 targets, and now it's completely gone. And, you know, people are hitting me with all this information. Well, it's because we got rid of all this stuff. We got rid of the centrifuges. And I would just respond, what evidence do you have of that? Just share it with me. Where have you seen that these sites were completely destroyed and that Iran has not taken any of the nuclear material and put it somewhere else, and that they have, and then you start just getting the religious, well, it could be if we just listen to Trump. And then I would start being like, well, then why did you have to send that to me? And they always pretend like they don't have this pro-Trump bias, that because Trump said it, they're trying to like work out the details in their head of this is why the information and like they don't even put it together that it could be this way. It's that it should be this scenario because it's what Trump told me. And then you're arguing with them and you're like, well, just show me what listen, I'm all ears. I got a show to do. I don't want to be wrong on the show. So if you've got the intelligence or you somehow know that the centrifuges were destroyed and that Iran can't, then tell me. And then they never can. It's like, so then why were you arguing with me? Why were you saying when I said, hey, how is this true? Well, it's true. Okay, well then there is no evidence.
Yeah, it's all retcon and rationalization. I guess they could call checkmate on you and say, well, we know that every atom of uranium was destroyed and there are no centrifuges, because you see every Iranian scientist and leader is actually a Mossad agent. And
Yeah, wouldn't that
that's how we know.
Yeah. It's like Scooby-Doo. You pull off the mask off of every Iran leader, and it's actually a Mossad agent.
Oh my God, was Iran ever even real?
Yeah, that would be a fascinating storyline. Israel was its own boogeyman the whole time.
Well,
And for what? Just so to spend American money bombing themselves? They're actually the real bank or the bankrupters of the American empire. What a fascinating storyline you got there.
you got to feel a little bit sorry for the Zionists because they were just getting into the stealing other people's land business and colonizing right as the whole rest of the world was going, this is a terrible idea. We can't do this anymore.
Right. Right.
And now they're sort of stuck. They got no home to go back to, and everyone's like, "What are you doing? You can't ethnically cleanse this land. What?"
Right. Well, that's the way to me, it's so backwards. Like, I'm very interested in the preservation of the Jewish people.
Sure.
I think having a Jewish homeland that's engaged in these activities kind of validates all of the worst conspiracy theories about the Jewish people, and that we need to hold ourselves to a higher standard for our own self-preservation. But everyone goes the other way and goes, no, if you criticize what they're doing, it's only because you're anti-Semitic or you're a self-hating Jew. And it's like, you have been so indoctrinated by a government here that that's the way you feel, that this actually represents the religion or the people in any capacity.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, some of my favorite conversations on this topic are really, really devout Jewish rabbis and whatnot who just hate the Zionist project and not only think it's bad and a violation of, property rights and whatnot, but it's like against what their understanding of what religion is. Like you're perverting the meaning of the word by trying to create.
I think when religion gets interpreted for some sort of an excuse for violence, I just think you messed up somewhere.
Yeah. Amen. Well, your show here in Vegas was fabulous. I hope you do a whole bunch more of those. And I'm thrilled to death at seeing, you progress. You're killing it, man.
Sir.
Master of your craft.
I wish I knew why that show was so good and that I could duplicate it every evening.
Like I've seen Tino before and, on off nights, I guess, but that night he was just on fire. And I'd seen
it was great. Yeah.
I'd seen your first opener too, probably at Shawnee and Ted's, and he was hit or miss, but he was great. He was great with you in Vegas this time.
Yeah, no, that was a particularly fun show. So here's to more of those. Check it out, porchtour.com.
So yeah, porchtour.com. Do you want to send the good folks anywhere else?
Well, the upcoming shows I got, it's funny, if you don't spoon feed people, they will never look at the website to let you know where you are. They just don't. So the upcoming run is this weekend. I got Raleigh, North Carolina on Friday night. On Saturday, I can't even remember the town's name, but it's like close to like Wilmington. Myrtle Beach on Sunday, which is a free show. And then I'm off to Texas doing Oklahoma City, outside of Dallas, Shreveport, Louisiana, and then Houston, Texas at the Secret Group, which is up on their website. And if you're interested in more dates past that, porchtour.com, they're all there.
Absolutely. And in the video description of the show on YouTube and Rumble, I will put everything Robbie the Fire related that I can think of. Some personal videos I've seen in the dark web, I'll put them up too.
Please, share the word. Let people know. It's actually my prowess.
I mean, that's not what the videos I saw displayed, but whatever. I mean,
someone else. I deny. That's AI. I think
these things are subjective.
I don't know. CNN.
If you're into that sort of thing. And also in the show notes at hamannature.substack.com. And Rob, thank you so much for coming on, man. It's an absolute honor.
Hey, man, it was a pleasure. And, tweet it at me and I'll make sure to retweet it. This was fun.
I definitely will. All right. Thank you, sir. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Catch you next time.